human beings is to use intrinsic motivation techniques, which are things as enjoyment, fulfillment, sense of purpose. It's linked to autonomy, mastery, and relatedness, and is considered the most effective for long-term engagement and high performance. There are a bunch of effective strategies for this. And there's some common pitfalls. But when we read the Bible, we don't see God using these techniques at all. And the problem is that he uses punishment and reward, which are not as effective. And in fact, the delayed reward is the worst of the effectiveness. So my question to you is, why is God, the maker of humanity, using the absolute worst of the motivational techniques and doesn't come anywhere close to using the best? Anyway, call in, because the show, it's starting right now.
This is Skeptic Haven. Let's talk.
Hello, hello. How's everybody doing? I'm here with Objectively Dan. Dan, how's it going? You're on mute, Dan. You're on.
I'm doing great when I'm not on mute. That's what's happening. I didn't realize this is one of those shows that mutes you and then doesn't unmute you after the intro. So,
sometimes that happens.
Mm-hmm.
So what have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Trying to enjoy this Memorial Day weekend. I'm off work tomorrow, so I'm just being very slovenly. Did not go to the gym today, even though I said I was going to, and I probably won't, and I'm probably going to play video games after this. Just trying to relax, just trying to, just do me. That's what's up. What about you?
I had big plans for this weekend. Yesterday I got some of them done. I was supposed to do the lawn. I was gonna, fertilize it, do all that, and then I got attacked by a nap attack. And
nap attack, yes,
yeah,
I know that
that was about it. And then I started watching some of the Witcher shows, and I was like, I used to enjoy playing this game. I should go play Witcher. So I started doing that. And so, like you, I will probably spend the rest of the night playing Witcher, and I will try
Witcher
and play
3, of course.
Of course, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And play as long as I can, because I'm old, and I don't know if I can do, a full 24-hour gaming session anymore. But damn if I'm not going to try, because I'm an adult. No one is stopping me.
There you go. That's what's up. I respect it. Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah. So I think the last time we were on together was on yet another show, right? One that you started.
Yet another show. Yeah. We tend to get together every now and then on these call-in shows. It's always in the context of call-in shows. I don't think you and I have ever been on another show that had a call-in element.
No, I don't. Were you on the Christmas show that we did? The game show that we did?
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah. That's a game show for call-in shows, I guess. But yeah. I guess if you want to count that.
Yeah, that was probably been just about it. But this is a live call-in show. We've been talking about call-ins, and we don't have any callers yet. So lines are open, and we're begging for you to call. If you just want to call and chit-chat as an atheist, that's cool too. But we definitely will prioritize DS callers over everybody, because we do want to talk to you guys. I do have a challenge out there for you theists, is to tell me why God is using the worst motivational techniques in the world when he should be using the best, and he's not. Can you explain that to me? But if you can't, I don't think you can, because I don't think God exists, but maybe you can. But what's been you also do not just theist stuff and does God exist, but you also do a lot of other topics too on your show, Truth Wanted. What's been the craziest thing you've talked to somebody about?
I'll be honest. I've had a lot of crazy conversations. I'll tell you something funny that happened Friday, which was
Okay.
a frequent caller of mine
Mhm.
called in, and I respect the gentleman, and I think I tried to I tried to engage him as much as I possibly can with his ideas. He believes that aliens are real and that human beings know about it and are keeping it secret. And there's some other ideas with that, but basically he sent in some pictures that he wanted me to look at.
Mhm.
And there were two pictures. One of them was a rock on Mars that he swore was an alien. The other one, okay, was a screenshot of a YouTube video of a guy in a suit holding up a picture of a Roswell, gray type alien. And I asked him what the source of this picture was, and he did not know what the source of this picture was. But
Is
he
this the
was
second time this guy's called in? Because I vaguely
he's called
remember
in
this
several
conversation.
times. This is
Okay.
like the 10th time he's called in, I think, probably.
With the same picture, because I remember
No,
having a
different
conversation.
pictures. Different because
Okay.
yes, you were on a show, and I think the same caller did send pictures last time, like you were on, but he sent some more pictures this time to try to convince me. Was not convincing, to say the least. In
Right.
fact, I did feel insulted because it's like, look, I've had several conversations with you, and I've entertained your ideas, and the best you're going to give me is a screenshot of a YouTube video of a guy holding up a photo. And I swear to you, Jim, he that I had to look at the picture with a magnifying glass to see the details more closely. A magnifying
I I remember him saying that to me as well, because we started getting into how that wouldn't actually magnify
right.
anything because of the pixels on the screen. All you're doing is getting a better view of the pixels, not a better view of the picture, because you don't have the picture in front of you. And
Yes.
even if you did, that's not the way. Yeah.
Now,
Um,
frequent backup host and also host of Truth and Wanted, Kelly Laughlin,
yeah.
owns a rock shop and happens to have a giant ass magnifying glass. So he actually came up from the backstage and brought that magnifying glass. And I was like, all right, Kelly, look at this picture for me here. Tell me what you're seeing. And it's like, yeah, this is just a rock on Mars, and also just a guy holding up a picture, like a
Right.
photo. It was just, I don't know, pretty funny. But
Well, there's Indian Head Rock, which is a
mhm,
formation that looks vaguely like an Indian with a feather and a headband. Just this,
mhm,
I think it's just
mhm.
one feather. There's lots of those rocks that the four, what was it, the four grandfathers, that was uh uh now what do we got the four presidents on? I can't think of, I'm having a senior moment. The rock formation we got the four presidents on, that was
You know
the
about Mount
face of
Rushmore?
Rushmore. Yeah. Rushmore used to have the four grandfathers before somebody destroyed that and turned it into, the four presidents that we have. But there's lots of this type of stuff where we see rock formations that look like humans, look like people, or clouds. So,
Yeah, it's true.
and
It's
then
true.
Jesus on toast, right?
And Jesus on toast. Yeah.
Jesus on a dog's butt. That's
Although,
probably
to be
my
fair, I mean, even when I was a Christian, I never thought any of that. I think most Christians are pretty suspicious of that kind of thing, right?
just
You know?
coincidence. And yeah, if you see enough stuff, eventually weird stuff will happen.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's kind of weird. Something that I have discovered recently is a new AI called consensus.ai. And
Okay.
it's not a general purpose AI like Chat GPT or Claude or um, whatever Grok is. Um, but it's trained on nothing but peer reviewed scientific papers, is what it's trained on. And so you're not going to get a lot of the weirder hallucinations that AI sometimes do, because they're reading, uh, some Christian web page and stuff like that. They're not being trained on the general web. But anything that scientists produce papers on is in there. And the other really cool thing about it is everything it tells you is fully annotated. So it'll give you little citations like 1, 3, 5, and 8. And you click on one, and it'll take you down to a blurb about the paper, and then you click on that and actually go to the paper. So basically, and the blurb is basically just there so that you can kind of, just as a further dive into what it had just said, but it's all that way. And then you could just keep, and all fully cited to, like I said, peer-reviewed papers. Wonderful AI. Unfortunately, when I was doing the intro, I was hearing myself, and I can't talk and hear myself at the same time through earpieces for some reason. So,
Well, I don't think anybody can. That's pretty distracting, honestly.
Yeah,
Not a very good thing.
But it's just a really, really good little AI. Like I said, if you're and you could type in just about anything, and it will any scientific stuff and give you that, and it does a pretty good job of summarizing it and all that. But it's something I've been playing with quite a bit. And I may actually subscribe. Yeah, I'm hoping somebody will call us some science stuff. We just type it in there and see what it comes up with. Just because it is, like I said, papers. So
yeah. But what if you type it in and then it tells you something like, "Oh yeah, actually climate change isn't real." Like, like would you be shocked? Would you be scared?
I would be very shocked at that, because what that would mean is that it's not actually looking at all the papers, right? Because that's the thing for me, right? It's looking at peer-reviewed papers. So if it actually came up with and cited peer-reviewed papers to prove that climate change wasn't real, I'd be very suspicious at that point that something weird was happening, right? Because the reason why ChatGPT and some of these others will do that is because part of their data set are websites that are trying to say climate change isn't real, or that the Grand Canyon is proof of the flood and all the other nonsense that we get. So if you ask it about supernatural, if you ask it about other weirder claims, I would expect it to go, there's just no real data there, or to cite any papers that may have been done on the phenomena. Because scientists have, they do sometimes investigate various supernatural claims just because they want to. And so those are always interesting. But yeah, it's just, the data is better. And so when you have better data, you're going to get better decisions. Doesn't mean it's not going to hallucinate. Doesn't mean you shouldn't go check and make sure those are real papers. But the whole purpose behind it is to summarize and to be a research tool for people doing actual scientific research. So, but it's consensus.ai. It's kind of a cool little tool. But
yeah, sounds cool. Yeah, I'll just be looking for proof of aliens later, I guess. See if it tells me what I want to hear.
Well, yeah. It's also a little on the expensive side, which kind of makes sense because it's getting you through the paywalls. So you're not getting stuck by that. So they're having to subscribe and do all of that kind of stuff. So
yeah, pretty cool. AI stuff's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I just typed in, do aliens exist? And it says that it requires at least 5 papers to directly answer your question. Try adjusting your query to find more papers. There's currently no empirical. So then in the actual response, it says these studies suggest that while there are many theories and ongoing searches for alien life, there's currently no empirical evidence confirming the existence of aliens.
Or so that's what they want us to think, though, Jim. That's what they want us to think.
I am sure.
But anyway, yeah, I say AI is cool. I mean, like, good. There's a lot of ethics with AI, right? I don't know what the data. I'm assuming this was like paid for data sets and stuff. If that's the case, then like that's fine. I don't care. There's a lot of big debate about
a lot of these papers are behind paywalls, so I'm sure they are paying for those to paying the companies that are producing those papers or publishing those papers. They're not producing them. But like one of the papers here is Aliens and UFOs by Deep Bhattacharjee. It's an Indian name. Published in the EPRA International Journal of Research and Development with 2 citations from 2021. He's got another paper that has absolutely 0 citations. So yeah, it's just a little bit kind of cool. But yeah, it gave us the answer we would expect a scientific journal to give us. No empirical evidence.
Neat.
Right.
Neat. Cool stuff. I don't know what to add to it, like, yeah, it sounds cool,
Yeah.
uh
Well, one more tool in the toolbox if you decide to,
yeah.
you
So
know.
like when someone's calling about something and like you want to seem like you're smarter than you really are, be like, oh yeah, of course I know everything about spectroscopy. Like, in fact, in this paper from 2007,
Right. Or you
just
just
start
say, hey,
typing
here's a
stuff.
research
Well,
paper I found.
yeah.
Well, it's a little bit better than Google because it does try to summarize the stuff for it. But yeah, that is just kind of a cool thing. And we still have no callers.
Mm.
So if
It's
you're paying
Memorial Day
attention,
weekend. People are out enjoying themselves. They're having fun.
yeah. Well, we'd like to have some fun talking to some callers, finding out if we can actually, maybe we can prove God to us. I mean, you could do it live on air where we can't say we it didn't happen, right? So, Lucifer Lucero says, I don't debate, love you guys, believe. We're not asking you to debate. We just want you to prove your point. And just realize that most of what you think is good evidence probably isn't. But, uh, yeah.
Yep. Good stuff. I've been playing a lot of Clair Obscure recently. You heard
What is
about
it?
Clair Obscure?
Uh-uh.
Clair Obscure Expedition 33. It's like game of the year, man. Game of the
Oh,
year.
wow.
It's great.
What's
It's
the
a
premise?
JRPG, but it's made by the French. You would have never thought it, but it's fantastic. There's like an optional boss that's just a mime, and if you beat it, you get a a beret with sunglasses and a baguette that you can wear on your back. It's great. It's awesome. It also but also like the story I just finished the story of it, and it's the most emotionally invested I've been in a video game in I don't know how long. Like it's really good.
Wow.
Yeah. So I recommend it. I would say on par with The Witcher, if not better.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
Yeah.
I'll have to give it a shot.
Yeah. Pretty good. Pretty good. Shout outs to that game. So that's been me. That's what I've been up to.
Yeah. Is it horror, fantasy horror? What is it?
It's JRPG. It's like how would I describe it? I don't want to say science fiction. No, it's definitely fantasy. The idea is every year this being they call the Paintress, okay, has been writes a number on a monolith, and she started from 100, and she's counting down. And anybody who is that age or older gets disappeared, like Thanos snapped on the same day
Wow.
every year. So all the population's getting younger and younger and younger. And every year they try to get on an expedition to figure out why the hell she's doing it and how to stop her. And it's getting gnarly. Now they're on expedition 33, which means everybody that's alive is 33 and younger, which is, kind of hard to deal with. So that's
Yeah.
the story. That's the basics. And it gets
Yeah.
crazy.
Because, I mean, eventually they're going to get so young that,
That
humans
it's
aren't
just
going to
gone.
be able
That
to
humanity is just
survive.
gone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I
that's the
would say like
story.
around 5, 7 to 5, somewhere in
Yeah.
there is when you get an extinction level event at that point, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
So a lot of twists and turns on the way, but I like it. Very good. So that's video game. That's the video game corner with Dan and Jim. Which is I know the content you guys came to see.
Yeah,
So
exactly. But if you don't call in, we don't really have, would love for you guys to call in. So as soon as possible.
you know what? I got some stuff from Japan. I can show off some stuff I got from Japan if you want me to
What'd
do
you get from
that. If you're looking
Japan?
for something to talk about.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, hang on. Let me go get it. I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah, so I've been playing a lot with AI, various AIs, and it is really some interesting stuff, especially as a software engineer. I've been playing with Claude quite a bit. It's kind of interesting. Um, especially when you can give it like memories and it will remember to do something. So I gave it a description of a feature I wanted to implement, and it went through the whole thing. It wrote the specs, and then it wrote the tests, then it wrote the code, then it tested it, and then it committed it all, wrote the PR, just the whole thing. Fairly sophisticated stuff. So it's interesting. It's not, I hate to call it AI, because it's not sentient AI. And I think we need to make a difference between that. Uh-oh, Dan's coming back. Oh, a Mario hat. That is cool.
All right, so I went to Japan for my honeymoon. I got married recently. I got a bunch of shit. I went to the Nintendo store, obviously. Oh, I went to Nintendo Land at Universal Studios. Got the hat, rocking it, you know. Got some Pikmin keychains. Love me some Pikmin, you know. If you know, you know. I got a Japanese copy of Super Smash Brothers Melee to put in my display case in my office.
You're not going to
It
play?
goes hard, you know. Because I'm a GameCube kid. What can I say? I love it. Also, got this little GameCube keychain. Oh, it's see-through on the A button, but it's like it's the GameCube controller buttons on a
Oh, cool.
keychain. You know, love that shit. Got the Lon milk from Legend of Zelda, and also a little Majora's Mask pin. I haven't opened this yet. Need to put this on my backpack or something. You know, got a bunch of stuff. Got this Godzilla magnet.
Oh, very cool.
Pretty cool, you know.
Yeah.
And got a million other things, but I don't know. Yeah, I went to Japan about I guess a little over a month ago now, and it was awesome. It was great. So
Yeah.
loved it.
I hate to say that I am an Intellivision kid. I date back that far. Other folks, some of my friends had Ataris, the old 2600s, you know, the 8-way
Yeah.
joystick.
And I'm not a big collector or anything. I just saw the stuff while I was there and wanted
Well,
it.
yeah, there's a
But
lot
what
of
I've read
stuff.
about like Atari and Intellivision, like collectors and stuff, is that basically everybody that's wanted to collect all that stuff has done it already. And
Right.
so it's a lot hard to find that stuff on the market just because everybody kind of already has what they want with that, which is interesting.
Yeah. The Intellivision controller, the thumb pad is still one of my favorite because I think it's just
Mm.
faster than the joystick style. And then having a numeric keypad was also interesting, but that was slower because
Mm.
you got to basically use two hands, and it just didn't work out very well if you're trying to do anything quick. But yeah, back in the day when Channel 3 was very important to your gaming life.
Yes. Yep. Now it's like HDMI 1 or 2,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. Yeah.
which is
I,
different. I have like
I think,
way more stuff from Japan, but to be honest, it's too much, and I'd feel embarrassed to show everything I actually bought. I spent more money on this trip than any trip I've ever been on in my life, and 100% worth it. But
right.
it does make me feel like that guy that's gonna be like in any future conversation, be like, well, you know, in Japan, right? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
one of those dudes. But
So what was the biggest cultural shock that you had when you went to Japan?
uh let's see. So there, I guess a couple different things. Like, you know, they teach English in school there, and
Hmm.
so I always had this impression that like Japanese people, not that they spoke perfect English, but that everybody had a pretty good sense of English. Pretty much the only people I could have a real conversation with were the people that worked at the hotels we stayed at
Hmm.
and people at the airport. Everybody else was pretty broken and
Right.
not really good for a lot, so it was fine. But you know, most stuff's written in English anyway. But I just thought that was kind of funny. Uh,
Yeah. Well, when I
Also,
went to
everything is clean in Japan, especially in
yeah.
Tokyo. Tokyo is the cleanest city I've ever been to, which is ridiculous because it's also huge. But anyway,
Yeah, when I went to Korea many years ago, for me, there were two big culture shocks that were kind of
mm,
equal. One was it's just like New York, except I can't read any of the signs because it was all in Korean.
Yep.
Not as many English signs as probably there is in Japan. I'd imagine there's a few more. Which I guess really is kind of weird because the U.S. military is a fairly large presence there in Korea. But we were in Seoul. And the second one is I'm only 5'11",
Mm-hmm.
and I was looking out over a sea of heads, and I'm not used to being the tallest person on the street.
Yeah.
And so that was really, really weird for me. And then the little old Korean ladies who decided to move like freight trains and would jab you in the side with their elbows to get you to move over was kind of
Yeah.
okay.
See, I'm 6'5", so I'm used to being the tallest guy in the room. That's just kind of how it is for me, like 99% of the time. So like that part I kind of expected and wasn't as much of a shock for me because that's just how it is kind of normally for me anyway.
Right. Everybody coming up chest high to you.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. But yeah, there is that. Like there is a lot of English science, but I ended up the advantage of me going in the year 2025 is that I could use Google Lens to just like look at everything and then just translate menus and stuff and maps and things, which was great. Also, oh my God, the Tokyo subway. We stayed when we first got there in Shinjuku, which is one of the busiest parts of Tokyo. And apparently, which we didn't know this, is like one of the most infamously like confusing parts of the Tokyo subway system, which is already really confusing if you don't know what you're doing. And like every time we went to the subway, we spent at least an extra 30 to 45 minutes just figuring out where the hell we were going. So like, I wish we had that kind of public infrastructure, but man, it'd be great if I could actually read the language of where I'm supposed to be going, because there was more than once where we would like get on a subway and end up going in the opposite direction or just trying to figure it out.
Wouldn't it be nice if we had actual public transportation?
Yeah, especially in Texas, but it's not going to happen.
No.
Not anytime soon anyway. But
yeah, because I mean, Texas could really benefit from a bullet train that would go from Houston to Dallas.
Yeah,
hit
they
San
proposed
Antonio.
it a few times, but it's never gone through.
Yeah, because it's just stupid reasons. But we're having a hard time getting that kind of technology to that type of public transportation anyway. Because there's a lot of places. LA to Phoenix would be a great thing to do. Just LA to San Francisco, up and down the California coast there, out to Vegas and out to Phoenix would be great. But nobody sees the utility of it. And for a town like Phoenix, I mean, Houston and Austin are relatively tight quarters. That was one of the things that shocked me the most coming back to Austin. When I did was was used to Phoenix, where you had plenty of room to drive in the lanes, and everything is just spread out, and none of that in Austin. Is like, wow, because you're in the hill country, so there's not a lot of room to put stuff without flattening hills and doing all that. And Phoenix can grow in every direction until it hits a border, pretty much, except to the north where but yeah.
Yep. So infrastructure, not great. But I have to imagine conversations about infrastructure in the state of Texas is not the most interesting conversation that our listeners want to hear. And if you want us to change this conversation, then I encourage you to call in and talk to us about literally anything else, and we will probably talk to you about it, because I believe we still have open lines, right? So
we still do.
Great.
Texas just passed a law to put 10 commandments in every school. They're not going to feed anybody. They're not going to do anything that Jesus Christ would have said to do, but they are going to put the 10 commandments up, because that'll change things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They're 100% going to change things. That it would be. I believe scientists everywhere have said, yes, this is the most impactful change we could make in our school system, which is putting up the 10 commandments in every public school in the country. You know, if you go to that consensus.ai, I think it'll agree with me.
I'm not even want to go there because you may be right.
I hope
Yeah,
not. I hope I'm not right. That'd be really bad.
Yeah, making sure the kids have food, which has been proven to improve test scores, is not the thing that the Texas legislature is going to do. They are, in
No,
fact, going to,
of course not.
yeah,
Of course not.
but well, but at least Texas has a halfway decent school system, unlike Alabama, where I am, which is the third worst school system in the country, and they're not doing anything out here to help that. Because feeding the poor is not a Christian thing to do, apparently.
No,
Yeah.
no, that's not. They don't really, and it can't be from the state. That's what they'll say. They'll say it has to come from charity, right? It has to come
Right.
from non-state
But
entities for some reason.
we're not a democracy of the people, by the people, for the people. And so when we pay taxes to help the state, that the state can't then also make sure that people are fed and do a better job of it than we can as
Well, that's what's
individuals.
funny because like we're apparently one nation under God, except where it matters in
Right.
material needs. Like that's the that's the exception. Like we do all the bullshit stuff, but not the stuff that actually helps people.
Yeah, just pay lip service to the Beatitudes, right?
Mhm.
Just pay lip service to Jesus Christ actually feeding the multitudes for free, right? He didn't
Yeah.
charge them anything, right? And he didn't say, "I will feed you if you listen to me." They were just there preaching, and you realize they were hungry, and you fed them.
Yeah.
And he didn't even want them at the first time, right? To follow him, they just kind of followed him anywhere. He was looking to have some me time.
Yeah, really.
And couldn't do it. So, but yeah, the Christians are doing, the Christian things,
Yep.
kicking people off of the help that they need, not helping anybody,
I
persecuting
read
the
it.
foreigner.
I read an opinion piece recently. I think it was Huffington Post of somebody compiling, spaces in online Christendom where people are talking about empathy as a sin. Have you heard about this?
Oh, who the fuck would be stupid enough to think empathy is a sin? All right, I'm curious now.
Yeah, so like the idea, I guess, is like, well, I couldn't tell you how they do it. I know why they want to do it, right? Because it's like, well, if you start empathizing with gay people, then you're going to like, think that they're all right, and we can't have that, right? We have to be able to have like the idea I think is like, empathy causes you to accept things like, thinking being gay is okay, being trans is okay, right? Not going to church is okay, right? By being more accepting of others, you're accepting sort of sin in a way because you're not following through with these standards. You're basically saying these standards might as well not exist. So empathy sort of leads to sin, is kind of the idea that some Christians are talking about right now, which is terrifying and sad.
Just
But
how ignorant can they be? Well, so I think this makes sense, right? Because the God of the Bible is the most unempathetic character of any book. I think he has no empathy, no understanding of how humans work or what they do. Because if he did understand how humans work, then I don't think he'd do half the things he did. Um, you know, punishing a whole bunch of people for the wrongdoing of one person, that's not mercy, that's not justice, but that is exactly along which it's the least empathetic thing he could do. I mean, I think we could take almost any situation and go, what's the least sympathetic thing that the person would do? And that's what that God would do and has done, right? Could the amount of trauma that he caused Abraham when he told Abraham to go kill his son, right?
yep.
I mean, that's not empathetic.
Mhm.
So that makes sense. So yeah, I can see where where Christians could say empathy is wrong, even though empathy is merely putting yourself in someone else's shoes to understand them better. And if you're going to try and convince somebody to do something, you need to find what intrinsically motivates them. so that you can motivate that change. Um, Otherwise, all you're doing is applying the carrot and the stick, and eventually people are going to rebel,
Yeah.
which is why God has such a hard time, right?
Yeah. But again, the Christian line is not to engage in worldly things, right? They just don't want you to be, you're supposed to be separated from the world. So the things that motivate other people shouldn't motivate you, you know? Like it's always
Right.
going to be no, no, we have to do things our way. It's our way or the highway. It has to be. That's the
Right.
only way Christianity can function and make sense. Because I mean, I'm friends with liberal Christians and I respect them for what they do. But the criticism I always have is, the liberal parts of you are better than the Christian parts, right? Because it's the liberal
Right.
parts that inform your empathy and inform your sense of social justice and stuff. It's not actually the Christian parts. Like, yeah, you can cite parts of the Bible, but the culture at large isn't doing that. It's individual people who are motivated and are doing great things that are making the change. Like systemically and historically, Christianity has just done a lot of oppression. It's not interested necessarily in
Yeah.
equalizing all people, which
Yeah.
is unfortunate.
Well, I think we can make a really good case that Christianity spread not through the quality of its ideas, but through the quality of its violence.
Yeah,
Starting with the Roman Empire, putting people, making it punishable by death to not be a Christian. So,
yeah. One can make the
you know,
case. One can make the
yeah,
case, and one should
for
try to
sure.
make the case and argue against this by calling into this show, because
Yeah.
this is a call-in show, and I believe we still have open lines.
Yeah, I
So,
think we're saying some pretty outrageous things that anyone who considers themselves faithful should be calling in to defend.
mhm.
So
We
you should be doing that.
Jim, just start saying more outrageous things, and
Okay.
then get people to call in, right? Like,
Well, I
say,
mean,
"I
I
think
think the most,
pineapple is perfectly fine on pizza." That's my genuine, honest opinion. There you go. Start
and
with
I
that.
empathize with that opinion, and I could see how your taste buds could be so messed up that actually tastes good. I could see that.
Well, see, you're wrong for that. You're wrong for that. But, I
um,
understand. You don't have the Holy Spirit in your heart.
yeah.
That's the problem, Jim.
Well, well, yeah. I mean, I
Mhm.
would assume I have a heart.
But you
That's
would
why.
assume I assume you have a heart, I
Well, I
think.
have a heart that pumps blood, but I don't know about this metaphorical heart that people talk about. I mean, that's why I eat so many babies, right?
Well, what are you, the
'Cause
Grinch? Are you saying you don't it's just not there for you?
well, I mean, can you eat babies and have a heart at the same time?
Can you empathetically eat babies?
I
Yes.
think I can. I'm not a parent, so I don't think I can actually understand what parents are going through watching me, munch down on their little tender and mild child.
Speaking of eating things, is a hot dog a sandwich? Maybe we should talk about that, because
Oh,
I used
that's a
to
good
think not,
question.
but I think it is actually.
Well, so for me, it's two pieces of bread, and a hot
Mhm,
dog bun
mhm.
is not
It's
two
basically
pieces of
2
bread.
pieces of
It's only
bread.
one.
Okay,
No, it's
but think about
one.
this, Jim. What if you just took a hot dog bun and you just cut it in half? Is it still a hot dog at that point? And if it
Well,
is that not a sandwich?
I think at that point it does become a sandwich
Mm,
and a sin against nature.
mm. What if you had a hot dog and you just had one piece of bread and you sort
Well,
of
that's what a hot
wrapped it
dog bun
around?
is one. It's just one piece of bread that's
But I'm
big
talking
and
about like
fat, and you just
sliced bread, you know?
yeah, yeah, sliced bread. Yeah, you just roll it up around the hot dog,
Yeah.
you know. But then
Is
the
that a
real then
sandwich?
no, because it's just one piece of bread. I think you have to have two
Mm,
pieces of actual bread. So this
mm.
goes to corn dogs too. Are corn dogs a sandwich?
Okay, now that's a new one for me because it's
Well,
surrounded by bread.
by a type of bread.
Mm. I think the slices really go a long way in the conversation, you know?
Yeah, yeah. We're just cutting up on this conversation because nobody's call. Oh wait. We have a caller. I think that oh no, this could be fun. Alrighty, we are getting ready to talk to Karen. Pronouns are she, her. She's an atheist, and she wants to talk about the 10 commandment stuff. Okay. So what you got for us?
Okay. I am first off, what version of the 10 Commandments in the school? I don't even know where to go with that. I live in a multi-religious family. You know, my dad's Byzantine, my mom Lutheran, I'm Jewish. I have a sister who's, Buddhist. You know what I mean? So this is, and nobody cares. I wish more families could be that way. We just, my dad's the boss. We celebrate Christmas. That's how it goes. But my idea is like, I would love to see teachers have to explain adultery to their students and why their father is going to hell because their parents are now getting a divorce because he was cheating on their mom. Obeying their parents and honoring them, even if they sexually abuse them or beat them. I don't think that people understand the can of worms they're opening up if they actually want to make the children learn them or recite them. I wish as Americans we could put the preamble everywhere and just remind everybody that it's we the people, So anyway, I just go ahead. I'm just it's one of my triggers.
It is. It's not. I don't think any Christians actually think that it like sincerely believes that the moral character of students will improve. I have a hard time believing that. What I think it is, it's just Christian virtue signaling, right? It's virtue signaling, and it's used by people who are undergoing elections, and they want to be the ones that are remembered by doing the Christian thing. That's really what it is. They want to have this one bill or this one piece of legislation that they want to pass that they can point to. They can say, hey, we're the party of family values. This is what I represent, to make it easy to understand for people and not have to go into complex things like why, the school systems keep routinely failing with critical education, or why we don't have the infrastructure for a proper healthcare system, stuff like that. So yeah, it's all just bluster. I really think that the folks passing this stuff are just as cynical as us and know that it's not really doing anything for anybody.
Yeah, I'm not so sure.
What do you think about the idea of the preamble?
Yeah,
sure.
I think putting the Constitution up everywhere would help people understand what their Fourth Amendment rights are, would understand what their First Amendment rights are, would understand that we have a president, not a king. No matter how much certain people want to be kings, they would just not that. But yeah, I think putting that up would be far more helpful than putting up the 10 Commandments. I don't know that having the 10 Commandments up back in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, when we, if they did have them up in certain schools, actually did anything. There's no evidence that it did. So yeah, I if you want to make kids not want to read something, make them read it in school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was thinking of. Nothing creates an atheist quite like reading the Bible. Yeah,
I would agree with that. It's both joke and true, right? Because I think even when people start deconstructing, they start reading the Bible more, and looking for the answers they can't find anywhere else and not finding them. And then you have some that read it like me and just went, this is badly told fantasy, historical fantasy, but fantasy. So yeah.
Yeah. But in any case, I don't think preamble's nice. I just got back from Japan. They don't need the Constitution's preamble in their schools to be good people or to have a functional society. You know what I mean? They don't need their state legislator posted everywhere in their schools. They just need to have good schools, right? At the end of the day, that's really more what I care about. I care about the material conditions by which students are growing up in. I grew up in Texas, one of the lowest rates of public education in the nation. I happen to go to a fairly good public school, and every other school around me was significantly lower in quality. and you could just tell, like, it's not great, and there's not a lot that people could do about it, and that's what's really unfortunate. I'd rather just see more material changes in general. Put the Constitution preamble up, fine, that's great, but to me, that's just a drop in the bucket of what would need to happen to make real significant change, at least the change I'm interested in.
Yeah, we would need to stop defunding schools. We need to get rid of the charter school program, because that has failed miserably. And we need to stop defunding public schools and start funding public schools, paying teachers what they're worth. Everybody says that teachers do it for the outcome, not for the income. That is a load of crap. Teachers need to live, and they should be able to live well. The idea that kids need the summer off is absolutely ludicrous. We're no longer an agrarian society by any stretch of the imagination. All that happens is that kids lose whatever significant amount of progress they made from the year before by taking 3 months off. So let's go full year round, but let's also fund these schools so that teachers aren't paying out of pocket for the things they put in their classrooms. Those are the things that are going to have the most change. But if you're going to put something up on the walls,
because they want to bring back that, make these kids don't have morals, they don't know their values or whatever. Is there any sort of compromise rather than that we could say, e pluribus unum, we are, we do have an identity. We are Americans. Because this is the whole thing that we're finding out now, that once you turn against one part of your population, you end up destroying other people because they don't understand the web of our lives together. I don't.
Well, that goes to the quality of the education, right?
It needs to be paid.
Creating a cultural identity that we're, all Americans and anything along those lines comes back to quality of education. And we can look at other countries that do it better than we do. They are smaller. Russia and China and India are the only countries that are kind of in our size, have our population, and they don't do it very well either. So maybe some of those techniques these smaller countries are using might not work, but maybe it does. We just need to pour more money into it, and bring everybody's level of education up. But I think getting rid of private schools entirely would go a long way towards that. Just because that puts more money into the schools. So.
Yeah. Well, a lot of kids don't even, you get to the book bans and everything else, and how many kids are even reading anymore?
Well, yeah, that's a whole, I'm in a way less concerned about that. I'm an avid reader. I love to read. So I think too, that reading is less important today than it was even 10 years ago. Because multimedia does such a better job of teaching and educating, and entertaining, that I don't know that it's as important. But we haven't quite had the revolution of the democratization or decentralization of entertainment. We're still going, the really good stuff is still produced by just a few places. And I think once more of that technology gets in the hands of people and people are able to tell stories better, that we'll see, kind of like books have, right? We'll see more of that. But I think people empathizing with characters and stuff like that. Dan was just talking about a video game that he got emotionally invested in. More video games are going that direction of being invested in, that creating that emotional connection with characters so that people enjoy the game more, which is basically what books do for me. So I'm not sure that that's as big a deal, because we have other mediums that probably do a better job than reading. But yeah, it's still a concern that people aren't able to connect with good people and good role models, whether they're real or fictional. What do you think,
Yeah,
Dan?
it's a good idea because of the research that shows that, people who read, and especially if they read local papers, they have more empathy, they have more understanding, patience, things like that with other people. But you're right. I guess it doesn't matter if I'm going through some type of game where there's a story behind it, or and everything's just not. We're just gonna, army guy. I'm gonna kill everything and shoot everything up, kind of thing. Still building empathy and other skills. I also like the way at least you can meet people that you would never meet in real life. Like people from all over the world. And that helps too, I guess. All right. My phone is about to die. I thank you for your time and this conversation. All right.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks for calling.
So does the game you're mentioning, what was it? Claire
Obscure.
Obscure?
Expedition 33. That's the name of the title.
Does it have a BioShock? For me, always had a really interesting impact on my interest in a story and being connected to it. Is it better than BioShock?
I've never played BioShock 1, so I don't know.
Okay.
I had to compare that, but it's good. It's one of my it's become one of my top 10 favorite stories from a video game. Definitely.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I would say.
But talking, speaking of people learning stuff from modern content, I don't, a lot of people learn some philosophy by watching The Matrix.
Yeah.
Identity and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, so like, I'm not gonna say I disagree with your point. I do think that people like gain by being open to other types of media, people gain insight and gain knowledge and gain things. I do think though that like literacy in America is a problem. Like a significant portion of adults have terrible rates of literacy and therefore don't actually read news or aren't engaged in civic activities, or have trouble with educational attainment, or like have trouble with all kinds of stuff in their life because of like lower rates of literacy. Our rates of literacy are not significantly improving, and I think that does impact the overall health and culture of a society. So I do think people need to read. So that's my take there. But
yeah, I'm back and forth on any given day. Because like I said, I am an avid reader. I would prefer to read over watch in most cases, although I did enjoy watching The Witcher, even though I've read the series. I enjoyed watching Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, even though I have read those books dozens of times, and I disagree with some of the takes that the producer did. And some of those were because you've got to keep the movie to a reasonable amount of time. Otherwise, you've got to put in a intermission for people to go to the bathroom and get up and stretch, because they just can't sit for 5 hours to watch a good show. And there are issues with doing a part 1 and part 2. Not everybody understood that there was a part 1 to The Hobbit and a part 2 to The Hobbit when the movies. But I also think that not as many people would have been exposed to the books if they had not watched the movies. So, and I think shows like Babylon 5 did a really good job of talking about some aspects of what a real multicultural society and fighting against tyranny and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I think the biggest change I ever made to my informed to my worldview, the biggest habit difference I made that I think contributes to my worldview is because I have a degree in communications. Okay, so I technically useless for most people, wonderful for pretentious things. Like, for example, if I didn't go to college and took media studies courses, I would not have the habit of reading the newspaper every day. Not newspaper, but like just news, every insights and stuff, right? Like that's a habit that was instilled to me through my professor, who told me that this is how you learn things and about how the world works, which is just something I just didn't do. Right.
Mhm.
Like just again, that engagement that comes through an analysis and also an enculturation through the written word versus watching things is a big material difference. Neil Postman, who wrote a book called wow, can't remember the name off the top of my head, but he writes about this and talks about the history of like going from the written word to all the other kinds of communication that we have now, from television to movies, things like that, and how the quality of your education still seems to be predominantly reliant on how much you read, right? Like the written word still seems to be king for most outcomes in your life, in terms of like ability to attain employment, education, even health, things like that. So
Mhm.
I still think it's important to be able to engage with things, reading, and not like watching news either. I think like most mainstream like news shows are garbage. Just being able to read stuff is probably the most important thing people can do. But that's my take.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. Um,
amusing ourselves to death. That's the name of the book. Neil Postman. There we go.
amusing ourselves to death. Yeah.
Amusing ourselves to death.
But for my day, the X-Men did a really good job of exposing a lot of racism.
Yeah.
And I think Grimm was it Grimm or the Grimm? I forget. There's a show. Um, yeah, Grimm, 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 um, where the main character is a Grimm, and his primary job is to kill Vessin, which are humans that shapeshift. They can fully shift where people can see them. They also do a partial shift where people can't. Normally, people can't. Um, but it was a really interesting way to look at undercurrents of racism on both sides of the fence, because the Vessin also did not like a lot of the humans. The Vessin are what these shapeshifters were called. It was also kind of monster of the week and really good, but it did deal with some of that kind of stuff in a really interesting way, and exposing that. So it was a little bit more subtle. A lot of kids grew up on Airbender and some of these other shows that I think gave them an interesting moral bedrock to form on as well. So, yeah, I agree. Reading is important. I would really like to see some studies on that, and see what the difference is.
Well,
If it's
you can ask
because,
that AI. Maybe they'll tell you.
yeah, I will do that, but I'm out of credits now. So it's I still am only on the free version. I really should pay for the pro version, so I don't have to worry about that as much. Um, so because if something that'll do the research for you is kind of cool.
I mean, yeah, there's that too.
Yeah,
I think
we've
that's
had
another
one
problem.
call.
Like nobody actually reads scientific studies. Let's be real. Nobody actually. What people read the headlines to scientific studies and maybe the abstract and get
Right.
what they want from that. I mean, that's just how most people operate. And I'm not saying that people have to read entire studies because quite frankly, people don't have the education necessarily to understand it. I certainly don't. If I'm going to look at a study about microbiology, am I even qualified to understand what the person is even talking about when they're writing these papers? Probably not. But like,
Right.
you know, this idea of being scientifically literate, like and being scientifically informed, only takes us so far because most of us we really do only know the basics about a broad range of fields. We anything beyond what's taught in like a secondary school education is kind of just above everyone's reach. So I don't know. It
Yeah.
makes me skeptical about these kinds of tools in a way, because it's like, do we actually have knowledge of these things, or are we just pretending like we do? Are we just like, are we just finding papers to confirm our biases at some point? Because how much are we really going to say that we understand the papers that we're even citing at that point, right? I don't know.
Right. I think that's why it's important to have good science communicators, and good interpreters who are doing that kind of thing, who are taking the highly technical stuff and turning it into something the rest of us can understand. But no, not everybody. I mean, this also, I think, goes back to trusting the experts, trusting the
Yeah.
people who know what they're talking about, and also recognizing your own biases and your own critical thinking skills, and doing a whole bunch of stuff that most people don't do. Most
Yeah.
people want to, live their lives.
Yeah.
And when they're expected to make a huge decision like who to vote for, they're not making good choices because they don't understand what a tariff is. They don't understand what he's actually talking about in most cases. But it all sounds good, right? But how are we
Yeah.
actually going to do that, right? He says there's how many millions of illegal folks here? And it's like, where did he get that
Billions
number
and
from?
billions.
Yeah.
That's my impression anyway. Jim, don't get me sad on a Sunday. Come on, it's Memorial Day
Yeah.
weekend, man. I gotta relax here. We got nothing but bad news this year, okay? So
Yeah, I know.
what's something happy we can talk about here?
You got any upcoming trips?
I mean, I just went to Japan. I'm tripped out,
Yeah.
That's my big thing. What about you?
Well, they're sinking or have sunk a new artificial reef. The SS America, I believe, is getting sunk off of the coast of Destin somewhere.
Okay.
I think it's close to, and so looking forward to going and hitting that as scuba diving.
Yeah. I'm scuba diving.
And then,
I'm NAUI certified. Do you know that?
oh no, I didn't know you're open water.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. Boy Scouts. I got through Boy Scouts.
Oh, awesome.
And you know what? At the times, the number of times I've actually used my certification, like I've dived post certification because you have to do a lot of diving to get the certification, is in the
4
single
dives, yeah.
digits. It's not a lot. I
Yeah.
went diving in the Florida Keys. That was pretty cool. And I
Yeah.
went in like a lake bed in Texas, and I think that's it. So, good for you for getting more out of your certification than me.
Yeah, I dove almost every weekend last summer. It's starting to warm back up, and my job situation is a lot more stable. So I'm probably going to start trying to get down there to the coast every weekend,
Hell yeah.
and do just a lot more diving on wrecks and other things. We've got a lot of stuff down here, and some of it you got to visit multiple times to see it all. I'm really looking forward to the whale sharks. Last 2 years they've been off the coast. I'm hoping for a third year, and I've got a job that is flexible enough that because it's literally they're only going to be here for a week or two,
Nice.
and so you've got
you're
to
gonna see them.
be.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm hoping I've got enough time off to be able to go and check them out.
So I just had a thought. You think ghost believers think that ghosts also stick around shipwrecked ships? Like, do you think you could see some paranormal activity underwater? Do you think that happens?
Well,
because like if they're haunting stuff, they're not breathing, right? They're dead. Like what? Maybe
yeah.
they're just underwater too. Just
Well, ghosts
fucking with
could be
me.
the real cause of that submersible explode. Being destroyed
It
down
says the
at
Titanic one. You
yeah,
think it was ghosts?
could be ghosts.
I think it was because they used a Bluetooth controller. Like that whole thing was crazy.
That was the dumbest thing.
That's the funniest part of that story. The Bluetooth
Yeah,
controller.
the
I
Bluetooth
don't know.
controllers. I think the other one is this idea that you can buck convention in in areas where the convention was learned by people dying. And I think submersible technology is definitely there. Automobiles are also kind of there. I mean, what kind of idiot puts an untested glue to glue the exterior of his car to the frame? And then
I mean,
expect that to not do that. And now he's having to recall all of, Musk is now having to recall all the Tesla trucks because they're falling apart. You can literally take the skin off them with your hands.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
stupid stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's another case of human stupidity. But yeah, it would be interesting if ghosts, and you talk about violent deaths. Sinking is, well, I don't know. People say that drowning is fairly peaceful, but I don't know.
People say drowning is peaceful. I've never heard that. I've heard the exact opposite. That it's like the
Yeah,
worst way to go. I mean, well, how can we say we've but
haven't done it.
but like, okay, you're scuba dive certified. Like my training was every week them telling us another way we could possibly die, right?
Yes.
Like, oh, your tank isn't properly sealed right, or
Yes.
you don't have the right mix of oxygen and nitrogen and you get nitrogen sickness. Like just a million ways you could die by scuba diving. I can't imagine running a company that makes experimental submersibles and being like, yeah, let's get the Mad Catz controller that your buddy uses when you play Street Fighter and just like go to town with it. I don't know. They were doing some wild stuff with that. I gotta say. I get it for Tesla because you make a big expensive product and people buy it, and like there's a somebody's buying it, right? Who's buying the the crazy submersible thing? I guess people who just really want to see the Titanic. I guess that was it, right? Everybody that was on there was like, yeah, we just really want to see it, and we'll do it at any cost, right? I don't know.
Right. And they paid quite the cost to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the place to go test that might be like Truck Lagoon, the World War II ship graveyard, where we sunk a bunch of Japanese ships. Those folks would have definitely died violently.
Yeah.
While
so that's
fire.
haunted.
Yeah,
for sure.
It should be haunted. Yeah, if it's
Should be.
real. Pearl Harbor.
Is the haunting so the more traumatic your death is, the more likely you are to haunt. Is there a correlation there?
Yeah. Well, battlefields would be a great place to figure that out.
Right.
We have a number of, we've got the Civil War battlefields here in the States, the World War II battlefields there. But, we have Pearl Harbor. A lot of U.S. sailors lost their lives. So those ships should all be haunted. The Arizona. Now, let me just say this. All those ships in Pearl Harbor are off limits to divers. Because
of the ghosts.
Well, maybe because of the ghosts.
That's the real reason.
Yeah,
they don't want people getting the underwater ghosts.
Yeah,
that'd be
not
really
just because
scary.
it's a graveyard and sacred, but also be
the ghosts. Right. See, because you're inside. So like if you're in a haunted mansion, you could do like a Scooby-Doo run away from that potentially. You're underwater exploring a ship. You can't get away from that as easily.
No, no, you don't swim as fast as you run. That's for sure.
Right. So that's what's really going on, I think.
Yeah, and you're right about open water. I mean, open water is 90% what happens when things go sideways, and 10% about actually scuba diving. It's 10%. How do you put your gear on correctly, and how do you use it, and how buoyancy control. The other 90% is, and
here's how you can horrifically die.
I've got my advanced open water. I've got 6 other certifications. So, and all of those are all about what happens when things go sideways in this particular environment. To go cave diving, you need 3 certificates. I've got the first one, which is cavern. That one, the first drill you do is done on ground. Not underwater, but it's a line following drill. And it's the first time I actually had an instructor go, "You're dead." Because it's that serious when you're in an overhead environment, you can't go up.
Yeah. Then you become a cave ghost.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the scariest of the subspecies of underwater ghosts is the cave ghost.
Because they have the most opportunity to kill you just by screwing with your equipment.
Right.
because everything you carry down with you is life-saving equipment. You
This
know,
is a great indie horror game, I think, that we've just come up with, this little premise here.
yeah.
They should do that. But I don't know. Not me, eh?
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
got too much going on. But somebody out there.
Yeah, really.
Any other
But
calls, Jim?
no, we don't have any calls. We're just
Too
up
bad.
here blathering. I think we're doing a pretty good job of hopefully we're doing a good job of entertaining people. We could check and see what people are saying about us on the show here.
Yeah, let's do the chat.
We look at chat. Let me grow up. Drowning is not peaceful. Your lungs will burn. It's very painful. You know, I have been at that very edge and my lungs weren't really burning, but that just could be me. That's the other weird thing is that, you know, we have these rules that you can't break, and yet people have break them all the time and it doesn't harm them. And it's like, yeah. Jack could have survived if Rose moved and let him get on the door. Yes, you're absolutely right. I think, didn't Mythbusters do that? See if there's
Probably.
actual enough room. Yeah.
That's just an unfortunate, like, they just needed a different, like, just needed to make that thing smaller. That's it. And then people would never think that. I remember thinking that the first time watching that movie without realizing that was like a common point of contention. Like, oh, that looks big enough for two people. But you know.
Yeah. Bree, yes, cave diving, it's not insanely dangerous, but it is a high risk environment. But when you hear about cave diving deaths, 95% of the time, it's because somebody violated the rules.
Or just people going too far. Like, oh, we're gonna go to the place that only one person has been to before in the past.
Well,
Or
that would
whatever,
still be that. So one of the rules is rule of thirds. You go in with 1/3 of your air, you come back on the second third, and you've got 1/3 for reserves. People will violate that quite a bit. But there are other rules too of cave diving, and you should get fully certified, not listen to anybody on the internet tell you how to do cave dive, because it is inherently dangerous. There's only one way back, and if you don't have enough air, you're not going to survive. But that's also why my cave dive, my instructor, you know, it was literally the first drill, and all you got to do is he takes a line and runs it around the shop or outside wherever you're doing the class, and then you've got to follow it with your eyes open and follow it with your eyes closed. And meanwhile, he's trying to knock that line out of your hand. And every time he does, you're dead. And I know most of the instructors I'm aware of do the same thing. So that's the only time in any of the certifications I've had so far where that has been the case, where they've actually been that serious about it, because it is. But it's like with everything else, if you mitigate the risks, you know, you bring the extra air, extra gas you need. So, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it is fun though.
Sure is. Somebody
was talking about Tolkien being a little long-winded in the Ents, and I was like, yeah, but the Ents were cool. I like the Ents.
I've read The Hobbit. I've never read Lord of the Rings though. Never been interested in it, to be honest, but maybe one day. I'm not a high fantasy guy. I'm more sci-fi.
Yeah. I'm both. You know, Dune was one of my favorite books as a kid. The time I was reading was a trilogy. You know, he wrote some of the other ones. So
the thing with high fantasy stuff is one of the reasons why I couldn't get into Baldur's Gate 3. It's just like, it feels like I have to, like, you know, somebody says, oh, haven't you heard about the elves of Nimblgrod, you know, who've been controlling this city for 100 years? It's like, it just feels like I have to do history homework. I got to look at the wiki now, you know, and it's like, it's history homework for something that doesn't actually exist. You know what I mean? I get why people like that kind of thing. They get really invested in the world. Like, trust me, I've done that for other stuff. But for some reason, for fantasy stuff, it's like if it hits too close to home, then it feels like this is just, I'm learning about the political machinations of elves versus dwarves for this fantasy thing, and I don't know. It just It puts me out of it a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, then there are Klingons and Romulans, and
Right. Yeah, that's true too. That's true
yeah.
too. You know.
And if you played, Traveler, the tabletop role playing game, you had the Aslan, and shoot, I just forgot what the little wolf guys were called. I'll remember them in a second. But yeah, I think most of your sci-fi have, multiple different races. Let's face it, Vulcans are elves. They got the pointy ears.
Yeah, if you're doing the space sort of space fantasy kind of thing, right? Where it's like, oh, here's these alien races and that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Oh, Hitchhiker's Guide. Yeah. Hitchhiker's Guide is awesome.
I've read Hitchhiker's Guide and I thought it was okay. I thought it was a little overhyped, but but I know there's like a radio adaptation and I think they did like a movie or TV show or something too. I've only read the book,
I
so
don't think
and
the
just the
movies
first one.
have the movies have not lived up to what the book was, in any way, stretch, or form. And I think that it's a very hard book to do a movie too. But
Yeah, I'm not trying to yuck anybody's yum. By the way, if you like it, that's
yeah,
great. That's great. It's just it didn't do a whole lot for me. That's fine. So
uh,
had some good
uh,
one-liners.
yeah, yeah. Um, Answer the Universe,
Yeah,
42.
that whole stuff. Yeah, it's
So
there's I can appreciate it for what it is.
Arthur Dent's Detective Agency. Yeah, I don't think I read that one. Or do you mean Dirk Gently? Is it Dirk Gently? Oh, they just did a series on that too that was really, really good. Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. Yes, I thought that was very good. Very weird. Not nearly as funny, I think, is Hitchhiker's Guide, but definitely on the weird side of good. But then again, I'm also the guy who thinks Kung Fury is an awesome bit of film. So have you seen Kung Fury?
Yes. Many years ago. Many years ago, but yes, I have seen it.
Yeah, for me, it gets better every time I see it. So
I'm I'm at the point in my life where it's like anybody can like anything and that's valid and I don't care. It's
right,
like if you can like every Adam Sandler movie under the sun and think they're the funniest thing. And you know what? In your world, they probably are, and that is okay. They just aren't in my world, right? So
right,
like I don't care. Who cares? Like your thing. I don't know. Some people just get too up in arms about what's objectively good and objectively
right.
bad in me and stuff. I'm so past that now. I'm just like what you like, whatever.
Yeah. Well, I like the thing I like about it is they intentionally went for the worst movie they could make.
Mhm.
They succeeded brilliantly,
Yeah.
and therefore it was just entertaining to watch the collision happen. I mean, like,
Yeah, there is something about because like okay, like The Room, right? I've
yeah,
seen The Room 3 or 4 times. I can't say that for some movies that I really like. You know what I mean? Like I've seen that movie quite a bit and like at the end of the day, if I'm doing that, that must mean there's something I appreciate about it.
right,
Right? So like, there is whether it's an intentional quality or not, doesn't matter. I'm getting something out of it and that's valuable to me. So
yeah,
if you're getting something out of it, that means it's valuable. That's all it means.
oh yeah. That's
So,
why there's so many different art forms and so many different ways to do every single one of them.
but in that thesis, right? To me that means The Room actually isn't one of the worst movies. Really, the worst movies are the ones that are so mediocre that you don't remember anything about them and you don't care afterwards, right?
Right,
People are still talking about The Room. People aren't talking about I don't know whatever romance movie was popular in fall of 2004 or something in theaters, like just some random schlock, right? Like it's
right.
that The Room, people still care about that. That I don't know. That there's something to that.
Yeah, yeah. I completely agree.
Mm.
Um, One of the TV shows that I have liked the most was Space Above and Beyond. and I can't even find it streaming anywhere. And I would love to watch it again and see if it holds up as well as I remember. Because like I went back last year before, and rewatched Caddyshack. And no, what not? What was the one in Sutton Summer Camp with Bill Murray? Bill Murray. Oh shoot! It was set in a summer camp. Anyway, it was one of those, and it just did not sit well. I was like, oh, this is just really, really bad. Meatballs, yes, Meatballs is it. I just, in the first 15 minutes, there's a simulated sexual assault, and I was just like, no, I'm done. I'm not watching this anymore. Yeah, and I don't think people remember that because it's just Bill Murray in the 70s. What he did was somewhat socially acceptable. And today, of course, it's not. And I just was like, I've grown up. That's not, anywhere near funny. So I ended up not watching the rest of the movie just because of that. Smokey and the Bandit held up. I watched it again. That's just a fun flick. So I would like to watch Stripes again and see if I had the same reaction to it that I did when I first saw it in the theaters. But yeah, some stuff doesn't hold up. Some stuff does, especially from the 70s.
Yeah. Yeah. That is true. Definitely true. Well, Jim, I don't know if we're going to be able to take any more calls in the next few minutes here.
Well, if we get one in the next 2 minutes, I think we'll take it. But other than that, I think you're right. So, but folks,
what it is.
I hope you enjoyed Dan and I just kind of vamping for.
This was the Dan and Jim shoot the shit for an hour and a half show, and talk to somebody on the phone for about 10 minutes tops. Calling show. So
So next time, encourage your theist friends to call in. We're friendly. Dan and I are probably two of the friendlier atheists you're going to run into. So yeah, but I think next time we will hopefully get some callers and have a fun time trying to talk to them. Unfortunately, nobody was willing. We had theists in chat, by the way. We had at least one, but he said he didn't do debates, and we're like, so preach and see how that gets you. But yeah, that's kind of a bummer. Anyway, folks, Dan, where can people find you?
Is it a bummer, Jim? Because I was going to say maybe the real calls were the friends we made along the way. Maybe it was about the experience more than anything else. If people want to find me, usually found Friday nights on a little show called Truth Wanted. It is a live call-in show that happens 7 p.m. Central Time Fridays, and we don't talk about just the God stuff. We talk about aliens, conspiracies, Bigfoot, whatever floats your boat. And then Thursday nights, I also do a stream with a guy named Prophet Azad called Zadanza. And it is whatever we feel like it. Last week, we reacted to Kirk Cameron's new puppet show thing called Iggy and Mr. Kirk. And if you're going to watch something from our channel, I actually highly recommend you watch that, our last thing that we put out, because man, that show is so fucking weird. Kirk Cameron is really into this iguana puppet, and I swear to God, at the end of the first episode, he tucks him into bed and tells him he loves him and kisses him on the cheek, tells him good night, and it's so uncomfortable, it'll make you vomit, but it's really funny. So
okay. That is a ringing endorsement to go and watch that. But I thought it would always be fun to get a bunch of atheists and do Mystery Science 3000 type thing to any movie that is on PureFlix.
That's true. Well, they do that, and it's called God Awful Movies. So,
Oh, okay. I'll have to go watch that then.
Yeah.
All right. So, folks, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And we will see you next time. Same bat channel, same atheist channels, same atheist time. Talk to you guys later. Have fun. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
This is Skeptic Haven. Let's talk.